All right, hello everybody. Today the lesson's going to be on chordates, and we're finally getting into the really exciting animals, I guess. And we're talking about animals with a vertebral column and a spinal cord. So we're going to talk about reptiles and fish and amphibians and all the mammals. We'll talk a lot about all the different kinds of mammals. I wish we were in school doing this, but I'll do my best. So when you think about animals that have a spinal cord, there's a huge diversity. I mean, you can have fish all the way to a huge blue whale. All those animals have spinal cord in common. And so today we're going to focus on some of the specific characteristics of chordates, and then we'll do a little activity to go along with it, okay? Okay, so today we're going to talk about chordates. And chordates are basically animals that have a spinal cord. And in order to be classified in the group chordates, all chordates must have four characteristics at some time during the entire life cycle of the organism. So I'm going to show you kind of a generic picture here that explains a little bit about what some of these characteristics are. So the first thing that all chordates have in common is that they have a hollow dorsal nerve cord, and it's labeled right here. Found in the dorsal part of the body, so this kind of looks like a super generic fish. And it is the nerve cord that is on the dorsal side running along the back. You can think of our spinal cord. And from there, nerves branch to organs, muscles, and sense organs. So that's the first characteristic. The second one is a notochord. A notochord is a supportive structure that is a rod, usually runs below the nerve cord that I just talked about. Usually you only see this in embryos. It's retained in a couple of the simpler species of chordates. For us, our notochord is no longer present when we are born. Once we're born, our notochord only exists in us as an embryo, and then it turns into our vertebral column. The third thing is pharyngeal pouches. You've probably heard about these in embryos. They kind of look like gill slits. They're paired structures in the throat region. In some, the slits will connect with the outside and become gills. So if you think about a fish, it's going to eventually become gills. And for us, it kind of gets modified in the embryo form, and it turns into what would be considered our throat region. And then the last one is a tail. So obviously you guys know we don't have tails, but when we were embryos we did, and it's just something that extends, it's a little extension beyond the anus. You can see the tail right here. It might contain bone or muscle. We have the remnants of us, for us, in our tail bone. And you know, obviously your pets have tails. Dogs and cats still retain their tails. Monkeys do. Not apes though. Apes are a little different. We'll talk about that later. The great apes have no tails anymore, but most fish have tails, and many organisms do have tails. And I just kind of wanted to show you this real quick to give you an idea of how similar we are as beginning stage embryos. And this is a very rudimentary picture, and there's some changes that probably need to be made to this. But I like to show this because it really shows fish, salamander, tortoise, chicken, pig, and here we are. In the beginning stages, we all look very similar. We have that tail, we have those pharyngeal pouches, all of us do. There's a notochord and a dorsal nerve cord running along the dorsal side, the back. And then as we go through fetal development, we change. And you can see, you know, here, if you look at the tortoise, it really looks a lot different than, for instance, the fish or the salamander. It looks different from us too, although we kind of resemble some of these other mammals. So kind of an interesting picture when you look at that, from where we start when we're first developing to just before we're born. Most chordates also are vertebrates, which means they have the strong supporting structure called the vertebral column, and then most also have an endoskeleton. So we kind of talked about endoskeletons with the echinoderms. It's just an inside skeleton. An exoskeleton was found in arthropods. This is an inside skeleton, and it supports and protects and allows for really good muscle attachment. What we're going to do today, what I'm going to have you guys do today, or rather for this week, is to view some skeletons and draw a sketch of each skeleton. So the assignment for this activity is to just kind of identify some of the differences that you see in skeletons of different vertebrates and chordates, but really we're going to focus a little bit more on vertebrates. So again, chordates have a spinal cord, and vertebrates have that backbone that you're probably familiar with. So here's the elephant skeleton to start with. Big, strong backbone right along the back. The next one, very different, king cobra skeleton. Take a look at what that looks like. Pretty crazy. The next one is turtle skeleton. See how it's fused to its shell right there, and the backbone is just kind of laying right along the back. A turtle shell is actually really, it's not just a shell like a snail would be, or the cuttlefish that we talked about before. It's actually it's got blood vessels running through it, and it's really important for the turtle's life, and for it to stay healthy. Here's a cat skeleton, a normal house cat. It's got a pretty adapted skeleton. And then we have a very different blue whale skeleton. So what you can do is kind of go through these skeletons and make a quick sketch of each one. And you can go back and just kind of pause on the video on each skeleton. And then what I'd like you to do is identify differences. Clearly there's going to be some differences in sizes, but I'd like you also to look at what is different as far as the structure of the bones, just in general. And find your own. Find one more skeleton of your own. Pick your favorite animal. I know dolphins and cheetahs are super popular. My son's favorite animal is a cheetah. Maybe you want to do a bird skeleton. Birds have really interesting, unique skeletons, and fish skeletons are really interesting too. But any kind of an animal that has a skeleton, just go ahead and take a look at it, search it up, and do a little sketch of it. And then that'll be your assignment for this activity. Thanks.